Welcome Wargamers to a very special lore video set in the most inhospitable edges of the Realm of Light, as we dive into the lore behind Animosity 3 Prime Dominion, which, if you're not familiar with that, it is a totally free, player-organized, worldwide narrative event for Age of Sigmar, and it begins on July 14th of this year. Now, I had the good fortune to meet with some of the organizers, and I'm so excited to jump into this event with all of you. So look forward to a few lore videos coming up, as it leads up to the 14th, but then also weekly updates on the grand overarching scheme of the narrative as it goes on from there. For this year's Animosity campaign, we travel to Hysh, the Realm of Light, but specifically to a section that, quite frankly, the main narrative of Age of Sigmar doesn't explore very much, and that's Haxia. For those who didn't catch this during my review of the Lumineth Realm Lords, and thereby the Realm of Light, because that's kind of where they went into a lot of this detail, the actual Realm of Hysh is split into 10 territories, massive supercontinents that are in perfect symmetry with one another. And surrounding all of them, almost like a ring around the realm itself, is the continent of Haxia. Now, this is a truly wild place. As we know, the further towards the edge of a realm you go, the more unstable and intense the magic it represents becomes, and it's no different here. In fact, while walking the full breadth of the realm to find his people during the Age of Myth, Tyrion, one of the twin gods of Hysh, himself was struck blind by the sheer intensity of light magic here. It's a place that's hard to fathom, and as such, it's rarely explored by the various civilizations of Hysh. So, how does a campaign take place in a location where none can tread? Well, that story begins way back in the Age of Myth, during the cataclysmic event known as the Spire Fall, which, if you're not familiar with that, I really do recommend you go watch my Lumineth Realm Lords Week video for more information on that, but it's essentially the elves of Hysh had their own mini age of chaos that was instigated by their own obsession for power and prestige and might. Huge rifts to the realm of chaos opened up, and demons, mainly from Slaanesh, poured into the realm all over the place. And just like everywhere else during the Age of Chaos, cities were leveled, kings were dethroned, farms were razed, security erased, and this created a massive panic and, of course, flood of refugees with nowhere to go. But some people are natural leaders, trying to do their best to keep this flood of innocent folk from getting slaughtered, and one such hero was an elf named Seraph Ariziel. He was trying to coordinate where these hordes of homeless elves who, were just trying to survive the Spire Fall, where they'd go, how they'd survive, kind of being very transient, moving from place to place. Well, on these journeys, remember, elves are nearly immortal, and the Age of Chaos lasted hundreds of years, so there was quite a bit of time that they could have been, moving around, migrating, trying to find a home. He came into contact with a soulblight vampire named Mithridates Alti. Now, Alti, as I'm going to call him going forward, is an interesting character, as he is essentially in a similar boat. The Age of Chaos had hit Shyish, the Realm of Death, where he was from, and he basically went running through realm gates to try and find a safe haven. So their paths naturally crossed, and he confided in Seraph that there was a place on the edge of the realm that was safe and untouched. A land that wasn't spoiled by corruption from chaos or the hubris of mortals. Place where their collective races could begin anew. Now, I'll explain how such a dangerous part of the realm could be a safe haven in just a moment, but I also wanted to touch on the fact that I like these allies of necessity. It's come up a few times in lore where just factions that you wouldn't normally think that would work together have to, because, well, Age of Chaos has twisted everybody's arms into survival first. But understand that this moment, right, when Alti explains that there is a safe haven out there, is the point where a major split begins. There are the elves, who stayed and endured the Spire Fall, and those would be eventually rescued by Teclis and reformed through dedication and discipline into the Lumineth Realm Lords. But those are not the only elves in Hysh. So this ragged group of survivors leaves the main bulk of the elven population before Teclis comes back and does a lot of reformation type stuff, following the vampire, and become a completely separate society that don't seek to become, like the Lumineth, one with their environment. They are not altruistic or focused. If anything, these elves are the ones that just kind of kept going from the old ways. They didn't learn lessons. They didn't have to endure the spire fall. They checked out and went to Haxia. Now, over time, they did reach their new home. The place was dubbed the Prime Dominion, which we will chat about right now. The Prime Dominion is, like many cities, built around a realm gate. But unlike many cities, this realm gate, the Cataractes, I'm probably butchering that, is truly grand in scale and acts as a pathway and river that dips kind of across and through different realm gates, ultimately leading to this inhospitable part of Hysh. But there's one feature that flips that narrative. Noctis, a small black moon that orbits the realm gate. Normally, this part of the realm would just be absolutely inhospitable. The realm gate would kind of just flow out to nowhere type of a thing. But Noctis changes that. The gate brings in minerals and resources and dirt and all these things that just, natural rivers carry stuff and do natural erosion. But the orbit that Noctis has, over centuries, gradually pulled these minerals into a little ecosystem of its own. And a big part of what Noctis does is black out the light magic at this little slice of the realm's edge. So there's just enough shade, as it were, to let life happen. So what you get is a tiny oasis of untouched beauty in a continent, the actual ring of Haxia itself, of deadly magics. And this is where Seraph built his new empire, starting with its capital city, Escarion. Formed from carving a massive castle into and city along with it into the rock of the main island that makes up the Prime Dominion. And from here, a new people were born, the Iskarneth, an elven people born in isolation, unreachable for all but the most dedicated travelers, and soon they began to thrive in this new paradise. Now we're going to fast forward here just a bit, bringing the story more up to a current timeline. The Iskarneth have expanded and reached out to fully colonize the region, forming 6 distinct yet unequal regions. And I'm just going to really quickly rattle them off. There's the Idrelek, the Taklandek, Selendek, Ruyalar, Dorniar, and Aurinar. And these are just names for regions that are collectives of these little mini landmasses that are formed from minerals being deposited from the realm gate and then kind of turned into an ecosystem with the gravity and the light protection from Noctis. And each of these regions is loosely led by a satrap. It's sort of like a civic political leader responsible for keeping their particular territory in check. But the problem is, these elves have done nothing to change themselves. Unlike the Lumineth Realm Lords who went through all this discipline and learning, how to find peace and contentment and that kind of stuff. So when they developed enough of a populace for leaders, nobles, and a full court, so too did the backstabbing and the intrigue and the drama that led to the Spire fall come back. Many secrets were brought to light through espionage and sabotage, but the biggest of them by far was that this city's founder and unifying leader, Seraph, had at some point become a soulblight vampire by the hand of Alti. In their last unified act, the satraps of all 6 regions attacked their ruler and slayed the vampire outright. Alti, the head vampire who showed them this place, escaped into the shadows and remains at large to this day. But now, the Prime Dominion is totally bereft of leadership, and the same ugliness that led to the Spire fall is still in the veins of all of these different regional heads. Each satrap, each leader, returned to their own little homeland and eyed one another distrustfully because now none of them know, is that guy a vampire? Is his ambition because he wants total control to be a vampire, or is he just an ambitious elf? How deep does this curse go into our society? There's just paranoia mounting. And an uneasy peace began, each, region kind of preparing itself for war based on who they believe is the rightful heir to the throne. But there's a problem. There's not a ton of elves here, period. They totally, left the main population of elves, but they were not a massive, continent and people unto themselves. There's not a ton of people in the Prime Dominion. And so these various satraps, these leaders, began seeking aid from armies all across the realm, each looking to bolster their forces and thereby guarantee that they will be able to take the throne. And this is where you and I step into the lore, as this is a highly reactive campaign, meaning you're going to play your games and have a very direct influence on where the story goes. You and I get to choose one of the various satraps to align ourselves with, and you can do it for whatever reason you choose. You can do it to manipulate them, make money, make your own territory, establish trade routes, or just spill some blood. We get to join one of these satraps for a stake in the Prime Dominion's future. Now, I want to end this video like I end all of mine, asking the question, why is this so cool, right? To me, honestly, this is some of the best fan-made lore out there. It gives GW a run for their money. We have a series of events and places that fit squarely in line with what we know about the Mortal Realms from the main story. It runs parallel to it and does so in a way that I think makes perfect sense. You know, coming off of like Curse City, we can see how vampires can partner with other races for the mutual benefit, you know, initially, but then they want power and they kind of creep towards it. And that's what we see with Alti the vampire, who initially helped because he just needed people to run away with him, and then started to corrupt stuff by, you know, turning their leader into a vampire himself. So it does feel like a little, you know, slice of the Mortal Realms that's equally as out there and crazy and ridiculous as everything else, but it's fun. It sets up a really great story where we have 6 dominions that are trying to vie for control. And let's talk about those. There are 6 satraps, leaders who you can kind of align your army with, each with their own motivations and methods, and no matter what army you play, you can join any one of them. I'll have a video coming out next week regarding them, but suffice to say, there's a lot of different motivations at play when you're talking about seizing control of an entire region. Now, if you want to jump in, you can check out the campaign page that I've linked down below. You can see a whole bunch of important locations and resources that your army can kind of decide to seize, pillage, or secure throughout the campaign. I'm super excited, and I hope that you will join me for it. Keep in mind, I'm just going to be very clear, I am not running this. I am just participating, and I am enthusiastic about it. So please do not think like, oh, Doug's running this. I'm not. I am just a participant that is super passionate about this. So if you want to join, check out the Animosity Discord in the link down below. Of course, their site is linked down below as well. And it's not just about playing games. If you're in a region that still is in quite a bit of a lockdown, or there's lots of precautions for your health or safety, you can contribute and get votes that count towards, you know, moving the story forward by things like hobby progress. You can do like your own fan art, lore writing, anything. So you can not only battle for the fate of the Prime Dominion, but also build and expand it as a setting week to week. So go ahead and check that all out. I hope to see you all participating. It's a super fun idea to get us all out of our caves from quarantine and having fun and interacting online. Play some games, meet some folks, and have a great time. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming.